Just yesterday, we had that information that there was this linkage between these two individuals with the South African variant. So, yun po ang tinitingnan natin ngayon na baka dyan sa Pasay may local transmission. DOH recommended to the President that we vaccinate ito pong mga ating kababayan dito sa Pasay City.
The DOH is now pushing to expedite the vaccination program in Pasay City. Authorities want to contain the spread of the virus as the South African variant has been detected in the city.
The Philippine Genome Center has reported a total of 6 cases of the B1351 variant in the country. 30 new cases of the British variant were also recorded. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Hall.
And I am Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with the Health Department reporting 6 more African variant cases in the country.
3 of these are from Pasay City, which has just started its ceremonial vaccination program today. Greg Gregorio has the big story.
Pasay City joins the series of symbolic vaccinations across Metro Manila. Its first recipient, Interior Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya. The Pasay City General Hospital initially received 300 doses, but Malaya said 5,000 more will be delivered. The start of inoculation in the city comes at a crucial time. Not only are infections on the rise with 519 active cases, 3 of the 6 South African variant cases detected by the Health Department are from the city. This is from the 350 samples sequenced by the Philippine Genome Center. But the Health Department is not linking just yet the rise in the city's infections to variant B1351.
We need to do a thorough analysis for us to be able to really confirm and say that the variants would be the cause of this increase in cases.
2 of the cases are returning overseas Filipinos, while the DOH has yet to verify if the other one is a local case. One of the infections is a seaman residing in a transient house, while the other one is a local worker. The city is now working hard to do contact tracing.
Ngayon po, nilalabas ang spot test results within 24 hours, pero hawa-hawa na po ang ating mga kapamilya.
The DOH cites foreign studies which suggest that this variant causes an individual to have an immune escape. This means they won't develop an immune response from a vaccine.
Instead that your antibodies will be working for you against a specific disease, hindi niya magagawa iyon because of the effect of this variant.
The Health Department tells One News's agenda that it now recommends that the general population of Pasay be vaccinated soon.
Initially do this for the healthcare workers in Pasay City, and then we will see if there are still enough vaccines to vaccinate the other members of the community in Pasay City. But yes, vaccination is part of our fast containment for Pasay City.
In the same 350 samples, the PGC has also detected 30 British variant cases. 2 new cases of the mutations of interest was also reported. There will also be a special genome sequencing this week to include samples from Metro Manila and Cebu. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
To shed more light on the matter, we have with us infectious disease expert Dr. Edsel Salvaña. He's joining us live via StreamYard. Dr. Salvaña, first of all, let's clarify. What do we know? What do we not know with regards to this African variant being in Pasay City? Have we determined that, or is this still being investigated?
Well, the report of the Genome Center actually does confirm that we have 6 instances of the South African variant in Pasay City, and a few of these are returning overseas Filipinos, but they're still trying to determine if some of the other ones do have some travel history. So these are real. However, they still are, they're still relatively low in terms of number. And so we're hoping that this is exactly what we want to do with biosurveillance. We catch these very early on so we can do our containment procedures.
Okay, so tell us about this variant, the South African variant. We know the British variant, we've heard, is a bit more infectious. That's one thing that people know about this. What about the South African variant? What do we know about it?
Well, the South African variant has two mutations that are of concern. So one is the N501Y, which is similar to the British variant, the UK variant, and also it has E484K, which is linked to some what is called immune escape. So there's decreased efficacy of some of the vaccines. It doesn't completely remove efficacy from the vaccine, but it does tend to decrease it a little bit.
Okay, but so I guess the question right now is we just started these, I mean, people keep saying ceremonial only because kaunting-kaunti pa, but these are real vaccines now being administered to frontliners. Does this change anything with our strategy? Because now people are talking, oh, maybe let's make it a little bit earlier sa Pasay kasi dyan na-detect. How should we react? Because I anticipate, a lot of people anticipate we'll be hearing a lot of these different news in the coming days. Should this confuse our strategy, or do we just stay the course, whatever that is?
I think it's a good thing to be proactive, especially with the vaccination. Now, it takes vaccination because you need 2 doses, and then it takes about another couple of weeks to kick in. It takes about 6 weeks for this to kick in, but it's kind of a forward-facing strategy. But that's not going to have an impact in the short term. So we have to keep doing what we're supposed to do. This is relatively early. We're seeing an increase in number of cases in Pasay, but it's still a minority of the number of cases is the South African variant. So we actually don't think that the South African variant is the main driver of those cases. We think it's still the regular COVID, and maybe, people are starting to get complacent, especially as we open up. So what that tells me is that we have to increase our vigilance and do the things that work, whether it's the UK variant or the South African variant. It's still the same. Contact tracing, minimum health standards. And the thing about the South African variant is, though, it's not as well defined as the UK variant. So even if it does have the N501Y, there are reports that it doesn't seem to be more infectious, and neither is it deadlier than the UK variant. As a matter of fact, if at all increased in terms of the transmission, it's anywhere from 0% to 50%, while the UK variant is 70%. So the increased transmission for the South African variant remains to be seen.
Yes, but Doc, another bottom line question. Do we know that the vaccines and the candidate vaccines that we're waiting for or are already in the pipeline will still work with these variants, or is it still too early to tell?
Right. So there are some preliminary studies. They see that Astra may have some vulnerability to the South African variant. Pfizer and Moderna have said that it seems like their vaccines work, although there is a decrease in the antibody titers. But for Sinovac, actually, serendipitously, since it's a whole inactivated vaccine, it seems to create a more diverse antibody and cell-mediated immunity response. And so the preliminary studies by Sinovac and in Brazil show that it seems to work pretty well against the different variants. So of all the vaccines, this might actually be the one that's good for different kinds of variants. And so we'll see. Again, a lot of this is laboratory data, and it's not in real world. But theoretically, we know that the whole virus vaccines produce a more robust immunity and are more resistant to variants.
Okay, maraming salamat po. That was Dr. Edsel Salvania of the UPNIH. Vaccines are making their way here, but so are COVID-19 variants. Tonight's big number is 93. That's the total number of cases involving new COVID-19 variants here in the Philippines. A majority of the infections are caused by the UK variant, 87 to be exact so far. The DOH is reporting 30 additional cases of the P117 and 6 new cases of the South African variant. 34 other mutations of interest are still being monitored.
These are the other big stories tonight. Symbolic inoculations continue in major vaccination centers in the metro. Thousands of Sinovac doses also arrive in Cebu and Davao. China state-owned Sinopharm has finally applied for the emergency use authorization of its COVID-19 vaccines. Its documents are now undergoing FDA review, which may take as long as 6 weeks. And a PDEA agent exclusively tells News 5 of his version of the fatal firefight between the drug agency and the police force. He says what happened was an overkill.
Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. More health workers got vaccinated on the second day of government's inoculation drive as top officials and medical practitioners worked to remove the stigma on the Sinovac brand and on vaccines in general. Jenny Dongon reports.
Dr. Christopher De Los Santos was first in line to get vaccinated at the Dr. Jose Rodriguez Memorial Center in Tala, Caloocan City. He developed a headache after the shot, but he said it's nothing out of the ordinary.
Ang tumatakbo lang sa isip ko noon, it can be just part of a vaccine experience.
Respiratory therapist Meryl Gasang also experienced pain in her arms and blurry eyesight for a few hours after getting the job. She says the effects are tolerable.
Ang important kasi ay mavaksinan ka. It's better na maging protected ka kaysa naman sa wala talaga.
But for Samuel Sumila, the hospital's chief nurse, he even had a good night's sleep after getting vaccinated.
Malaking bagay po yun na kahit papano, meron na po magiging proteksyon kahit papano po. No? So yun po yung isa sa mga antagal naming hinintay. Oh.
During day one of the inoculation, the DOH only tallied 13 cases of adverse effects. Most of these are minor, like rashes.
Wala sa kanilang na-admit, lahat sila ay inobserbahan, minanage, at after a while, they were all sent home.
Symbolic vaccinations continued throughout the metro. Over at Santa Ana Hospital in Manila, Vice Mayor Dr. Hani Lacuna got her job as a health worker. Mayor Isko Moreno has yet to receive his since he is not considered a priority.
Because of what transpired yesterday, marami na-inspire na mga doktor at nurses. So, umakyat ng 19 yung aming nagparehistro.
In Pasig City, more medical frontliners have also started to come in for vaccination. Pasig City Mayor Vico Soto said vaccination is voluntary, but he urged the public to trust the available vaccines. FDA Director General Eric Domingo also hopes the symbolic vaccination involving health workers and some top government officials will serve as proof of vaccine safety.
When we say we know it's safe, that we mean it, and that we will not allow anything to be used on them that we will not take ourselves.
Surveillance teams of different hospitals will monitor vaccinated individuals within 2 weeks before they receive a second dose of Sinovac. For News 5, Jenny Dongon, We Are One News.
Hundreds of vaccine shots were administered on day one of the country's inoculation drive. The health department reported that a total of 756 frontline health workers were vaccinated yesterday. Of that number, close to 500 were vaccinated in hospitals for uniformed services like the Veterans Memorial, VLUNA, and the PNP General Hospital. The rest were vaccinated in public hospitals. As earlier reported, 20 individuals experienced minor adverse reactions. The doses are expected to be sent to private hospitals by next week.
Inoculations outside Metro Manila are set to begin soon with Sinovac doses transported to Cebu and Davao today. Jem Avancenia reports to us live from Davao. For more details, Jem, when will Davao begin inoculations?
Gretchen, if things go according to plan, vaccination here in Davao City is expected to begin this coming Friday. This as thousands of CoronaVac vaccines have arrived here in Mindanao.
At 7 o'clock this morning, Hope finally made its way to Davao City. 12,000 doses of Sinovac vaccines arrived at the Davao International Airport via a Philippine Airlines flight. The vials were immediately transported to the Health Department Regional Office Cold Storage Facility. Davao City medical frontliners are the first recipients. It will start on Friday at the Southern Philippines Medical Center. Officer in charge Dr. Ricardo Odan says 150 employees, mostly doctors and nurses, will be getting the jobs that day. But he admits some have reservations.
May kaba sila, may fear sila. So I think the best way to convince them to promote this vaccine is you yourself should be vaccinated.
They target to vaccinate 90% of their employees. After inoculating SPMC personnel, medical frontliners from private hospitals are next in line. Meanwhile, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte is not included among the first recipients of the Sinovac doses.
Dili man gud siya frontliner. So murag nag-giveaway siya na kuan. Giveaway siya na para sa unahon gud ang frontliners.
Gretchen, DOH region said that they are expecting the next batch of Sinovac vaccines to arrive soon. This as IATF said that they allocated a total of 18,000 doses for Davao City. Gretchen?
Jem, how about the Sinovac shots for Cebu? Would you know when they will begin their vaccination drive?
Gretchen, 7,200 Sinovac vaccines have also arrived in Cebu City this morning, and these vaccines are currently stored in Vicente Soto Memorial Hospital. The city's inoculation drive is expected to begin tomorrow. Gretchen.
Thank you, Jem. That was Jem Avancenia reporting live from Davao. Time for an extra look at some of the day's big stories. China's Sinopharm has applied for emergency use in the Philippines. The Food and Drug Administration is now reviewing its application. The FDA earlier said that its review may take as long as 6 weeks, as Sinopharm has yet to get an EUA from a stringent regulatory authority. It was given compassionate use for 10,000 doses to be administered to the Presidential Security Group. The Philippine ambassador to Brazil, Marichu Mauro, was fired after being caught on camera maltreating her Filipino helper. President Rodrigo Duterte says Mauro's dismissal comes with accessory penalties. These include forfeiture of her retirement benefits and a lifetime ban from holding public office. And oral arguments on the controversial anti-terror law have resumed after a week-long break. Arguments centered on whether such a measure is really needed. Ex-Solicitor General Jose Anselmo Cadiz says the Human Security Act is already enough to deter terrorism. Government will air its side on March 9. Time for another quick break. When we return, a PDEA agent exclusively tells News 5 the misencounter with Quezon City cops was an overkill. He questions why a PDEA asset was being targeted by the police. And the artist to sing the Filipino song for international Disney animation movie Raya has been revealed. We'll tell you who she is after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. In world news, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy was found guilty of influence peddling and bribery, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. But he may not even serve jail term, as 2 years of the sentence were suspended. The presiding judge said Sarkozy will instead wear an electronic bracelet outside prison. Sarkozy is the second French president to be convicted of corruption. In Indonesia, Mount Sinabung has erupted and spewed volcanic material to as high as 3 kilometers. This is the volcano's latest major eruption since August last year. No casualties have been reported. Alert is placed at the second highest level. Mount Sinabung is located in Sumatra, one of Indonesia's main islands.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. From Philstar.com, the Court of Appeals rules in favor of former Senator Antonio Trillanes, overturning a Makati court order that revived his rebellion case. The CA said that the Makati RTC committed grave abuse of discretion in its ruling. Recall that President Duterte in 2018 revoked the amnesty earlier granted to Trillanes for his involvement in the Oakwood Mutiny. Business World reports that Manny Pangilinan, who chairs power distributor Meralco, has submitted a non-binding offer for the Malampaya project. Pangilinan said he is looking at acquiring the stake of Shell Philippines Exploration, operator of the country's only natural gas field. And from News 5, beginning Friday, cinemas, museums, and other establishments may reopen in areas under GCQ, or General Community Quarantine. The Trade Department issued a memorandum reclassifying several businesses to allow previously restricted activities. Under the DTI order, cinemas may operate at 25% capacity, museums, libraries, and tourist attractions at 50% capacity, and driving schools at full capacity in areas under GCQ. In the world of sports, the LA Lakers carved a rather easy win against the Golden State Warriors on Monday. King James got to sit out the rest of the fourth quarter despite the absence of star forward Anthony Davis. Still, the team pulled a 117-91 win against the Warriors. James said the Lakers are now more comfortable with their roles as Davis got sidelined. In fact, 6 of them scored double figures during the game. Not quite a good day, though, for the LA Clippers. The team lost to the Milwaukee Bucks 100-105. Giannis Antetokounmpo scored 17 of the Bucks' last 22 points to push the team to victory. The Clippers went scoreless in the last 4 minutes, with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George coming up empty on multiple possessions.
Another Filipino makes history. KZ Tandingan will be the first to sing the all-Filipino song Gabay for Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon. Disney earlier teased the mystery singer of its upcoming Southeast Asian-themed animated movie. KZ says she's honored to show off the beauty of the Filipino language. The movie revolves around Raya, who's out to restore peace by finding the last dragon. It is set in the fictitious Kumandra, inspired by ASEAN countries like the Philippines. Raya and the Last Dragon will premiere on March 5. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Have you ever done like a group project?
In Britain, someone just won $1.4 million in the lottery, but the thing is, the winner is still not claiming the prize. Baka hindi niya alam, the winning ticket was purchased last September and expires March 17. That's why the National Lottery tapped the Walsall-based Backyard Brewhouse. The brewery is the same place where the winning ticket was bought. It was tasked to produce 100 bottles of blonde ale, aptly called Just the Ticket, in hopes of finding the lucky bettor. The brewery hopes Just the Ticket will help spread the message and bring the winner a barrel full of laughs. See, I told you, hindi niya alam.
$1.4 million. Kung dito yan sa Pilipinas, nagdasal na lahat na mag-expire na lang yung ticket.
Dami ng ano. But if you're the type who does not read the news, doesn't watch TV,
Oh
hindi ka naabot
my.
social media, at bote ng beer ang magbabalita sa'yo, matagal-tagal pang hahanapin yan.
Buti na lang mga Pinoy talagang nakatutok usually.
So watch the news. That's the moral
That's the
of the
lesson
story.
here. And that wraps up today's big story. My name is Gretchen Noel. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.